Been in this game for years. It made me an animal. It's rules to this shit. I wrote me a manual, a step-by-step booklet for you.
All right. You're listening to the We're Talking Football podcast, coming to you from a shared universe podcast studio. I'm Weston. With me to my left is my right-hand man, Lou. Lou, how fitting to lead in with the 10 crack commandments, as we're going to be focused on top 10s for the next few weeks as we enter the lull point of the NFL season. Tonight we begin with the quarterbacks. What can the audience expect?
Yeah, so pretty much what we're going to be doing, this is the kickoff, the leadoff to our series of top 10s. We're going to go throughout perhaps the more attractive positions, the quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, and what have you. And we feel like we're going to be the top 10 that's currently in the NFL today. And then we'll also throw out some names later, overrated, underrated, and things of that nature. It is going to be challenging for me to find additional songs with like a top 10 theme and stuff like that. So I have my work cut out for me.
You sure do, but I'm okay with this on repeat. I'm never disappointed by the song choice here. I want to reiterate what you just said. Top 10 in the league now. Stay tuned for future iterations when we get into top 10s of our generation across different positions. We'll wrap up this evening leading into what position we're going to cover hopefully next week, because we've been removed from the studio here for a few weeks now. I've missed you. I know Ming has missed us. My seat has missed me, so I'm ready to get going if you are, sir.
Ain't no time like the present time. Let's do this.
All right, so we're working backwards, right? 10 through 1?
Yes, we're going to be going 10 through 1.
Lead us in. Who's donning number 10 for you, sir?
All right. I got to start off hot right here. In my opinion, the 10th best quarterback in the league currently today is, dramatic pause, Ryan Tannehill. And the look, I knew it. All right. I knew this is a controversial take.
Super controversial, but continue.
Okay. So here's the thing. He has better winning percentages than Watson, Wentz, Mayfield, Cousins, Stafford, Carr. And they all have gleaming reviews by, critics. Well, not all, like Wentz and what have you. He's 4-7 against New England. That's a 36% winning percentage. You're like, okay, that's not so great, right? That's a higher percentage than Peyton Manning. And look, he really created a new type of career for him the last 2 years with Tennessee. If you look at the stats, they really jump off, especially what he did last year. In 2020, he had 3,800 yards passing yards, 33 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. What there seems like game manager. Perhaps his stint with Miami was a fluke. Don't forget who his coach was, Adam Gase. Don't forget who the talent that was surrounding him, Brian Hartline. I mean, no wonder why this guy was not successful. And also, he was, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Weston, call me out on this. Wasn't he a converted wide receiver at Texas A&M to a quarterback?
Yes, that is
so
true.
Maybe he just needed a little more time to perhaps grow in the position a little better. Now, if you look at what he did, I'm not a huge proponent when it comes to wins and losses, but your Giants fans that love Eli Manning, what have you, they love this type of stats. But I'll throw it out there too. Last 2 years, he was 18-8. It's a pretty damn good winning percentage. So, and he led them to the playoffs the back-to-back years. I just don't see why he's being overlooked as a top 10 quarterback.
So I'll touch upon this in a moment. However, you mentioned winning percentage. Prior to his arrival at Tennessee, he had never had a winning season. 2 500 seasons. I draw some of his success, his recent success, to King Henry behind him running for 2,000 yards a season in a more simplified offense with more talent around him. So to me, that doesn't speak to top 10 ability, but I'm going to bite my tongue for a moment because I'm going to have somebody in this top 10 that you can literally make the same argument in. So I'm not going to dig my own grave. I'm going to say, this is your list.
I'm going to repeat myself. His record against New England, he's always given them fits. He always has given them fits. And if you want to take a look,
how is somebody with a 36% winning percentage giving them fits?
But you're not understanding, though. You're not understanding. Peyton Manning had 35%.
Yes, but that was Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, like New England has done this to many of teams. To me, he's just par for the course.
I think the last 4 games he's been 3-1 against them.
Okay. Well, that's a dip. You should have led with that.
Okay. Well.
Okay. So, all right. Starting it off with fire. I'm going to cool some of this fire down. My number 10 in the league right now is equally as controversial because there is not enough body of work on this individual, but it's a testament to what I believe they are right now. And when I was building this list, I looked at it like, okay, going in order, if I was planning a 17-game season right now and I could select my starting quarterback, taking the assumption that maybe these 9 people are removed, why would I take this person, right? So that's kind of how I that was my algorithm, if you will.
Okay.
So my number 10 quarterback is 23-year-old Justin Herbert.
Go ahead.
I'm going to talk some stats for you. Again, not a lot of a body of work. 15 games, right, that he started here. For 2020, 4,300 yards, 31 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. Also ran for 234 yards and 5 rushing touchdowns. That culminated to a 6-9 record. He had 1 comeback in 3 game-winning drives as a rookie. Right? To me, it got exponentially better as the year went on. And when I look at some of these other quarterbacks in the league, I look at Justin Herbert and I say, if I was to use a baseball term, he's a 5-tool athlete to me. I know you hate hearing this because you just don't want to be disappointed, like as a fan, but I believe in this hype. And if these 9 other individuals I'm going to rattle off are not available, I would be thrilled to go into the season with him as my starting quarterback.
I get it. Justin Herbert was phenomenal last year. You can throw all the repetitive stories, how he had no offseason, he just was thrown into the Kansas City game and what have you. That being said, I cannot put a guy who only played 1 year in the NFL as a top 10 quarterback. I need to see what else he can do. And this is going to be another trying year for him because he has a new offensive coordinator. He has new personnel around him. He's going to have to learn a new system. It's just something that I think I need to see a little more before I'm starting haphazardly throwing a guy who only played 1 year into the top 10. We've seen this before. RG3,
Yep.
Amazing first year. Trubisky was really good the first year too. Carson Wentz, first couple years. I need to see more before we can put this guy in the top 10, in my opinion. I love him. I have high hopes for him. I hope I'm not wrong there.
You just don't love him as much as I love him. And this is not haphazard. I gave you my methodology as to how I tackled this. It is not a massive body of work. I am well aware of that. But when I look at a list of some of these other people, when I'm comparing just his position, the people around him, aging, people around him have other support factors that this guy didn't have. And he did this at a rookie level. And I know the caution stories that you just said, right? RG3, Carson Wentz, Mitchell Trubisky. This guy is not them. He's not them. I don't care what anybody says. He's not them. And like I said, working backwards, if the 9 other people that I'm going to rattle off in, this would be who I would tap to go into the season as my starting quarterback.
Okay.
Who do you got for number 9?
Number 9, I have Matt Ryan. He's a 4-time Pro Bowler, 1-time All-Pro. When we talk about Pro Bowlers, let's temper our excitement when it comes to discussing that because there's so many alternatives nowadays. Almost anyone can be a Pro Bowler. But he's a 4-time Pro Bowler, 1-time All-Pro. And most importantly, he's a 1-time MVP. He is the heart and beat of Atlanta. You look at his stats every year, he's putting up over 4,000 yards passing. Granted, he has a bunch of talent around him. Throughout his career, he has 38 game-winning drives, 30 fourth quarter comebacks. He was this close to winning it all, and pretty much. I'm a big fan of him. Still think he got some in the tank. You look at the records, though, the last couple of years, you can obviously see there has been some regression. Is that from him? I don't think so, because the stats say differently. I think it's more of team regression. But, yeah, he's always going to give you anywhere from like 28 to like 32 touchdowns a year.
I love Matt Ryan, love Matty Ice. I mean, I think his nickname alone is indicative of how he approaches the game. I had to disclaimer, he's not in my top 10, but it was hard decisions to not have him in my top 10.
So you have a one-time quarterback over a one-time MVP in your top 10. Okay.
Yeah. Listen, I'm looking at this right now, right? Like, some of what I have I'm going to put out there is based on an overwhelming amount of past performance. But the people on my list show me that if I'm going into 2021, which is right now, they're still doing it regardless of past production or not. And I'm not taking away from like 8 through 12. We could have 10 other people in here, and our 8 through 12s will all look different, right? It's preference at that point. I think as Matty gets a little older, he's still clearly a little bit, he was never mobile, but he's going to get less and less mobile. Like a 23-year-old kid, he can move around for me. It's just different, Okay. Number 9 for me, 24-year-old, and I still can't believe this individual is only 24 years old. Pro Bowl, League MVP, first team All-Pro, all in the same year. It's happened once for him, but Lamar Jackson is number. So I'm gonna address some things here. 2020, 2,700 yards, 26 touchdowns, 9 picks, just under 65% completion rate. He rushed for over 1,000 yards, rushed for 7 touchdowns, 6.3 yards per carry. For his career, just over 7,000 yards rushing, 68 touchdowns, 18 interceptions, 64% completion rate. Almost 3,000 yards rushing, 19 touchdowns, 6 yards per carry. He's got a career record of 30-7. He's played in 4 playoff games, 2 comebacks, 4 game-winning drives, right? So those are the accolades, if you will. I know the knock on Lamar is the passing element of it. And is he a pocket passing quarterback, or is he a running quarterback? To me, he's just whatever needs to get done. I know you're going to say, like, people always say, like, oh, his completion percentage is completion percentage. But if you really start looking at some of these people that are going to be on our list, he's par for the course. You know what I mean? And I don't think the offense was designed to let him just sling the rock. He's got the arm to do it. It's more of like, I guess the knock is more the mental capacity to get through progressions, to sit in the pocket and not just go with his first instinct to run. But you know what? Running the ball has been really successful for him. I just talked to you, 30-7 as a career record. And I would argue a lot of that has to do with what he is able to do as well, and just being that dual threat, and how you can cover all you want, but you can't account for that. And if I got to go win games, I know his legs coupled with his arm, they're going to win me some games.
Okay, so I think with the problem with people, the perception of Lamar Jackson is he doesn't hit those statistics that a traditional football fan wants to see.
4,000 yards passing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The yards, the completion percentage. However, there's different ways to win games, and that's all you need to do as a quarterback. What people really feel, when they look at his offensive stats, especially on the passing side, they're going to throw some rocks and dents into it to basically say, it doesn't look that good. However, you have to incorporate his running, and you have to incorporate the total touchdowns he's been having year in and year out. Last year, what did he have? 34 touchdowns. The year before, he had 43. Touchdowns equals wins.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. And the one stat that I take a look at when I did this, completion percentage, yes, you want to look at that. But look at yards per attempt. Yards per attempt is very important, and I'm going to tell you why it's very important. Basically, it's actually a good metric for how often the quarterback tries to drive the ball downfield, right? That's like the definition of yards per attempt. But the whole important thing is it's also a historic correlation of a team's offensive output. The higher the yards per attempt, usually the more they score. That's me oversimplifying it. And there's actually a study done in 2008 that teams with a favorable yards per attempt won 71% of the time, 150 games wins to 61 losses. So if I'm really oversimplifying yards per attempt, it's a great indicator for wins. And he meets the yards per attempt threshold, 7.5. That is what I'm looking at. His total touchdowns, his yards per attempt. It's just that it's not traditional, and he doesn't fit in the cubby that everyone wants him to fit in as a traditional quarterback.
Well, to your point, he's trying to push the ball down the field, right? His yards accumulated are not bubble screens, right? Jet sweeps or little shovel passes that you just have to literally let go of the ball and the guy sweeping, in motion across the field and just put it into his lap. Like, the attempts are there. I think the offense needs to start to evolve a little bit more around him in stretching the field, in doing those things. But again, can you fault a guy? Like Michael Vick made a living on this. If the pocket breaks, I'm a 4.3 40 guy. Come catch me. You know what I mean?
Don't be something you're not.
Yeah, totally. They did this. They did this to RG3. They did this to Kaepernick. They did this to people like, no, we need you to be a pocket quarterback. And you took away what, more often than not, let them sit in the pocket because you didn't want to get burnt downside.
And also what got them there.
Yeah, 100%. Who do you got for 8?
So 8, I have Dak Prescott, two-time Pro Bowler, 2016 Offensive Rookie of the Year. If you just look, first and foremost, outside of last year, and last year was a fluke, he hasn't had a losing season. So once again, for those people who love to attribute team wins with quarterbacks, he has 42 wins and 27 losses. You just look at the progression you see year over year when it comes to his completion percentage. Last year, he had 68% completion percentage. He was really good last year. And if you look at it, he has 106 touchdowns to 40 interceptions. That's a fantastic ratio as a quarterback. And he's been pretty good, too, in the playoffs. Those numbers pretty much don't move. He has 5 throwing touchdowns to 2 interceptions, 64% passing. So it's not like he regresses once he gets to the stage. And he's in 2016, 2018, he was able to bring the Cowboys to the playoffs. I'm a huge fan of Prescott. I think he's going to keep on progressing, and he does bring something. I would like to see him use more of his legs, but he does bring another dynamic to his game when it comes to rushing. He just doesn't do it as frequently as I like to see it.
Yeah, I'm a fan of Dak as well, and I'll be the first to admit I wasn't when he was coming out. Right, I was more of like, is this guy a gimmick guy? Like, is he gonna be so dependent upon his legs? And I didn't think he was that 4.3 4.4 burner that it was gonna translate well for him in the NFL. I think his 2019 season is indicative of who he is. 4,900 yards, 30 touchdowns. Well, I think something like 11 picks. Like, that's who he wants to be. What I thought was really telling about his progression in the NFL and how he has gotten better and taken over as a leader of the Cowboys team, 14 game-winning drives in his first 3 seasons. Yeah. It's the most by any quarterback through their first 3 seasons since 1960. So that is 60 years of football. And I know the game's evolved, but I think that's just telling of where he is. And I'm in total agreement that, Dak is definitely a top 10 quarterback in the league.
I wanted to get him up there more. I just couldn't.
Yep.
But it doesn't slight how I feel for him when it comes to his skill level.
Okay. 8 for me overall, and I think there's going to be a little controversy here. Maybe not, because the overall record is super underwhelming, but I don't think it's an indictment on the player himself. 33-year-old Matthew Stafford, I have as 8 overall. 2020, 4,084 yards, 26 touchdowns, 10 picks, 64% completion rate. I know it's a 5-11 record, but for his career, I mean, this is a serious body of work. 45,000 passing yards, 282 touchdowns, 144 picks. He's a career just under 63% completion percentage, but he has a losing record overall. I know he had Megatron, right? Like, I get all of that. But to me, this guy is guts. He is grit. He is the absolute leader of any team he is on, and he leads by example, not just because he's the quarterback. He played for a really, and pardon my French, shitty Detroit Lions team for an extended period of time and still showed up. Outside of his like rookie and sophomore year due to injuries, only 2019. So again, think of that body of work. So you're thinking about 11 seasons in a row where he played 16 games. Then he had an injury. Last year, through everything, played all 16 games. Like, I want this guy under center all the time. 31 comebacks, 38 game-winning drives. I mean, to me, Stafford is a stud. The Rams hit a home run. We talked about it when we did that, and they pulled out all the stops. But, again, the overall record's lackluster. The amount of playoff games that Detroit has seen is lackluster. But, you know, it's the ultimate team sport. One player can only do so much.
Matthew Stafford as a player, I love. Like I said, I always love those players that he's gritty. You know, he's banged up. He'll keep on going out there and play at a high level. I just had him outside my top 10, to be honest with you. I had him at 12. A couple of things. If you want to be pro Matt Stafford, you can say, hey, he has 13 more game-winning drives than Aaron Rodgers. That's pretty impressive. That guy's pretty good, right? But if you want to kind of throw a little ice on there, his record against winning teams, 8-67. And I know they've had awful, shitty teams, but that's a pretty low record to only have 8 wins out of 75 games. And if you look at his yards per attempt, you said he had Megatron. He only had 7.2 yards per attempt. How do you have 7.2 yards per attempt with perhaps the top, 4 best wide receiver of all time?
Listen, I get it. I'll boil it down to, and I'm not making excuses for Stafford, but I would say that, you know, Megatron wasn't exactly the epitome of health either, right? So some of those lingering seasons where he wasn't out on the field, and when your second best offensive weapon's not there, this dude was making a living throwing to pre-Kenny Galladay, you know, Theo Riddick out of the backfield. You know what I mean? And again, we just talked about this. 8 through 12, 8 through 13 on anybody's list is going to vary. Mm-hmm. It's whoever owns the list, it's their preference. And Matthew Stafford has always been a preference of mine. You remember when we were talking about the trade between the Lions and the Rams, how disappointed I was as a 49ers fan that we weren't all in on Matthew Stafford at that point.
Yeah. All right. For number 7 for me, I have Lamar Jackson. We won't beat a dead horse too much, but there's one accolade that you actually forgot. He was a Madden cover recipient. You got that. That's very important.
Did he? And he survived the curse.
I think so. Yeah. I think he survived the curse. Lamar Jackson, he's electric. He's a highlight film. The only issue with me, I couldn't move him up closer to the top 5, is because he seriously regresses in the playoffs. Now, if you look at his playoff numbers, his completion percentage goes down 8 points to 55.9%. He's 1-3 in the playoffs. His yards per attempt also go down significantly to 6.6, and that's almost a 1 full percent. It just hasn't been clicking when he gets to the playoffs. He's still extremely young, like you said. He's about to be 24. So, am I worried? No. It's just that he's not there where he needs to be to compete with some of the better quarterbacks or teams in the league, per se. But like I said, what's most important with him is you have to incorporate his both rushing and his passing abilities, and don't just focus on all the passing, because he scores touchdowns. Touchdowns wins games. Yep.
He's on my list, just in a different order, so I'm not going to belabor any points, and it's going to be the same thing here and probably moving forward over the next. But for me, number 7 was Dak Prescott.
Okay.
You said everything that I would say about him. The only thing that I might add is because you used this stat earlier when you were talking about yards per attempt and trying to push it down the field, and he's above that threshold, right? So for his career, it's 7.7. The last 2 years, 8.4. and 8.2 in yards per attempt. So
that's huge.
Dak isn't dinking and dunking. No. Do you know what I mean? He's going for a first down every time he drops back. And I just think you got to love that about him, and I hope he stays healthy. So that's number 7 for me. Who do you got?
And the great thing with Dak also, before we go, it's not like he puts the ball in jeopardy. He's not a turnover machine, too, when he's going for those deep shots. That's what's most important.
106 career touchdown passes, 40 interceptions. You take that ratio all day long.
Exactly.
Who do you got at 6?
I feel like I'm going to get chastised for saying this. Josh Allen. And I know it's probably earlier or later, depending how you see it. I have Josh Allen at 6. Last year was phenomenal. I get it. It was phenomenal. And he's a dual threat. I get it. I just want to see another year of this before I move him up. I think my top 5 will make sense. And I think one person in my top 5 is getting slighted. So I will hold that off. But yes, Josh Allen had a fantastic year last year. 69.2% completion percentage, over 4,500 passing yards, 37 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, and he did pretty well in the playoffs as well. He also puts up roughly around 400 to 500 yards rushing too. So you have to take that into consideration. And all that being said, I like Josh Allen, but if you just look at the years past, I just want to keep on. I don't want him to regress this year.
Yep.
Because what happened was he did so good this year. People start noticing tendencies. Can he? And then they start making adjustments. Can he survive those adjustments? You have to understand, going into the 2020 year, I think his over-under on passing yards was 3,200 yards.
And he went for 4,500.
He went for 4,500. So he had a meteor breakout there. So that's why I have Josh Allen. I just want to see another year, and then I put him closer to the top 5.
Listen, I give you credit for being consistent in your sentiment. The same reason you chastised me for having Justin Herbert at 10 overall is because you want to see a little bit more. I would say that Josh Allen, over the last 3 years, since he's been a starting quarterback, has progressed every single year. I'm not going to knock you for where you have him located by any means, so long as he's in your top 10. There's no argument that he's not a top 10 quarterback in this league, because he is a dual threat too, right? Like he's not a speed rusher. I mean, it's like a really tall fullback running into you.
It's almost like he's like a Cam Newton light.
Yeah.
That being said, I know I stated before he has 69.2% completion percentage, but when he's off, he's off. Like me, he's nowhere as close to throwing for those.
Well, for career, he's closer to 60% completion.
Yeah.
Again, last year felt like the anomaly so far, but I don't think it's an anomaly.
That's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking, hey, I'm going to move. He's close to the top 5.
Yep.
Was this an outlier this year, or is this a thing to come? Things to come. Yep. You have to understand the defense. The teams around him in the AFC East, they got better.
Yep.
Their defenses got better. So I just want to see a little more before moving him out there.
Even if there's a drop-off, so long as it's not significant, he's still worthy of top 8 in the league, right?
You gave me a look when I said Josh Allen, like, bro, are you kidding?
No,
Dude,
no.
I saw it. I saw it.
Well, listen, here, like, moving forward in this conversation, like, I have a feeling if we're not saying the same name, like, we're one off from one another, and that'll make sense in a minute. So number 6 for me is probably number 5 for you, in all honesty, and it's Deshaun Watson.
Okay.
In 2020, he was magnificent. 4,800 yards, 33 touchdowns, 7 picks, over a 70% completion rate, ran for another 400 yards and 3 touchdowns, but he had a 4-12 record. As for the career, he does have, he's above 500. He's 28-25. He's thrown for over 14,000 yards, 100 touchdowns, 36 picks. He's a career 68% completion percentage. He's ran for... Listen, he's uber talented. There's no denying. The guy's a winner between the ears on the football field. I think why he's at 6 for me is I don't know if he's playing football this year, And if I felt more confident about that, he's probably slightly higher on this list. But I always draw back to the mentality that I created this list with. If I was starting a team in 2021 and I got to handpick my quarterback, if I don't know if he's going to even play or if he's going to be suspended or whatnot, like, there's got to be a little penalty for that, in my opinion, right? Like, it's my list. I'll create it the way I want to, and I'm penalizing Deshaun Watson a spot because of that.
Whatever makes you sleep at night, man.
It makes me sleep great. But, like, listen, I mean, the dude, he's played in 3 playoff games. He's a 3-time Pro Bowler, 8 comebacks, 10 game-winning drives. Like, he's got all the individual accolades. Nobody's going to deny how talented he is. He looks to pass. He can a play breaks down. He can take off and he can run with the best of them in the league. But what do we always say about quarterbacks or any player in the NFL? Availability is the best ability. And is he available right now? I don't know.
We'll see.
Who's 5?
5 for me. And it's going to be telling. I'm very interested to see what your top 5 is. But 5 for me is Tom Brady.
Okay.
I don't know if you have Tom. Don't tell me. I don't know if you have Tom Brady in your top 5. If you don't, shame on you. And you're probably thinking, oh, there's some throws out there. You can't throw the deep ball and what have you. Tom Brady had 4,600 yards last year throwing. That ranked him 3rd in the NFL. More than Josh Allen, more than Aaron Rodgers, more than Russell Wilson. He also had 40 touchdowns last year. I didn't even know this. He had 40 throwing touchdowns last year. That ranked him 2nd in the NFL. Yards per attempt, by the way, 7.5. So it meets that threshold.
Yep.
The record, they're 11-5. This guy went to a totally different team, totally different scheme. Bruce Arians is completely different than Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick likes to get the ball out quick. Arians is play action, bomb it down the field to new personnel, and all he did was lead a losing franchise to the Super Bowl and won it. I don't think I have to say anything else. If he's not in your top 5, bro, shame on you.
Did you know that Tom Brady as a starter has never had a losing record?
Yes.
The closest he ever came was 9-7.
I don't care about the age. What he did last year, going to a new team, like I said, during COVID with the very limited offseason, it just blew me away.
Okay. So I'll give you my number 5. My number 5 is Josh Allen. You rattled off the stats. We just talked about the progression year over year. I happen to be a believer that he will be a repeat offender time and time again, and this is a little bit more indicative of who he's going to be as a quarterback in the NFL for quite some time. That's why he gets the nod for me. I mean, in 3 seasons, he's played in 4 playoff games. He's led 8 comebacks, 11 game-winning drives, and none of those were in his rookie year.
Yeah.
Right? So, getting better as time goes on, but I'm not going to belabor anything. I believe in my heart that 2020 is a true indication, plus or minus a few yards, plus or minus a touchdown here or there or an interception, that is who Josh Allen is, and that's who the Buffalo Bills believe they were getting when they drafted him. And to me, he's a top 5 quarterback in the NFL.
Don't make me look like a bad guy to Bills Mafia here, thinking that I'm not high on
Somebody
Josh.
throw this guy through a table.
Dude, don't make me look like that.
Bro, you just chastised me. If Tom Brady is not in your top 5, I didn't even get to my top 5
He
yet.
better be in there, man. He better be in there. And I hate Tom Brady as a person and a player.
Don't get me started, please.
Number 4, Deshaun Watson. He's a 3-time Pro Bowler. What he did last year, regardless, they had a losing record. He did it with a bunch of scrubs. 4,800. He led the league in passing with 4,800 passing yards. He can win with his feet, his legs too. He had over 400 rushing yards. 36 total touchdowns. We went over the yards per attempt, 8.9. Who was he even throwing to last year? Brandon Cooks, Randall Cobb. Yeah. Kuki Kiti, whatever. I just can't believe
Kiki Kuti?
Yeah, whatever the hell his name is. He's it. He's a great player, and he's a leader. I did not take any of the off the field stuff into consideration. I just think he's the 4th best quarterback in the league as of today.
Hey, it's your list.
Yeah.
You didn't have to take any of it into consideration. I did. I just talked about Deshaun Watson, so again, we're in agreement. The guy is a stud for sure. We talked about it the entire time when we were talking about what half of these teams were going to do in free agency before all of that excess information came into play. So number 4 for me. 14-time Pro Bowler, 3-time first-team All-Pro, 3-time league MVP, 45 playoff game appearances, 39 comebacks, 48 game-winning drives, 7-time Super Bowl champion, none other than 44-year-old Tom Brady.
Good for you, bro.
So he is in my top 5. Lou, you and I see eye to eye on this. Like, I hate saying this, but nobody was rooting harder against Tom Brady and his success when going to Tampa than me.
I
wanted to believe that it was right place, right time, right circumstances, part of the Belichick way. I don't even say the Patriot way. It is the Bill Belichick way. I wanted to believe that. I was hoping for that, and he proved me wrong. Like you just said, 4,600 yards, 40 touchdowns, 12 picks, 66% completion percentage. He rushed for 3 TDs because he's that ultimate fourth down goal line sneak quarterback, and I appreciate that about him. We talked about he's never had a losing season. I can't say he is, you know, and you know how I feel about this, and I hate him. You know how I want to, like, who I want to say is the GOAT, but I can't take that away from him. He's still doing it at 44. And then probably the only reason why he's at number 4 on my list is because I have to believe in his age 44 season, he can't keep doing this, right? Like, it just, there has to be.
You've been saying this for 3 years now.
Regression. I mean, last year he threw for just a hair over 4,000 yards.
Yeah.
600 yards later. Now, granted, I too would love to have Mike Evans and Chris Godwin and an Antonio Brown and these type of people to throw to, but
he also was making players off Scotty Miller.
Yep.
Let's not. And it's
stretching the field with Scotty Miller.
And let's also not forget that this is a completely different offensive philosophy that he went to. I know I said that before.
Yep.
Before, that was the dinking and the dunking to the running backs out of the backfield, the small little shifty white receivers in the slot. Like, that was get the ball out quick. This was completely different.
He's averaging a full yard more in average yards per attempt this past year than he did last year. Difference in the offense, and yes, he's got the playmakers, but it still requires somebody to get them the ball, even if they're open, and he's still doing it.
You know what? If you want to say, oh, the Buccaneers are loaded, where were they the year before with the similar talent? Outside of Tom Brady, who did they really bring in last year?
Why it's the most important position in any sport.
But
at
it's
any
not
time. It requires you can have the best team in the world. If you don't have a quarterback that's capable, it's not happening.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Yep.
Even Jameis Winston, who once was sorted out top quarterback, even he couldn't
do it with this team. You're right. All right.
Number 3.
So this is where I'm interested because I want to venture a guess that we're probably the same on number 3, but I'm really curious about 1 and 2.
Okay. So number 3. I'm going to lead in with this. Number 3, I think is the worst number 3 quarterback from the last couple of years I can think. For example, that spot used to be for Brady, or not Brady, it used to be for Manning or Breeze or Rodgers. This is the worst number 3 because I don't like him as a player, but de facto I have to put him here. Russell Wilson, 7-time Pro Bowler, Super Bowl champion. Like Brady, has never had a losing record as well. He has very similar numbers to Tom Brady. The thing that separates Russell Wilson from Brady is his ability to make plays with his feet. So that's why I have him in the third slot right here. All that being said, I didn't like it. Like I said, we were spoiled with other quarterbacks, and we're really going to miss on Breeze and players like that. And Peyton Manning and what have you. This is perhaps he's the worst ranked 3rd quarterback of all time. If that even makes any sense. I feel like I'm talking in circles.
No, to me it makes perfect sense. Lou, what stickers do you see on my computer screen here?
I see Apple, and I see 49ers.
Okay, so you know how much it pains me to even talk about somebody who plays for the Seattle Seahawks, let alone someone like Russell Wilson, who's been a personal 49ers slayer for the last 9 years. Guy's talented. The guy's a winner. He's got everything that you want to be a leader of your team, other than he's just corny as all hell. Mr. Unlimited. whatever. Is he rightfully deserving of this spot? Yes. But what bothers me the most, I mean, dude, the way he started last year, like, he just as easily could have been the MVP. It cooled off towards the end, but the whole let Russ cook, it was like a different Seattle offense than you've ever seen. They were always run first, and then all of a sudden it was like, oh shit, look at what Russ is doing. Let's let him throw the ball 40 times a game and throw for 5 touchdowns. And then it fizzled out over time. I mean, the length of an NFL season can do that to any offense. But what pains me is, because I've seen this firsthand against 49ers, is there are times where Russell Wilson looks super pedestrian for 3+ quarters. I'll use 49er games as an example where I'm like, we're going to win. We are going to beat Seattle. And then you're like, oh, wait, it's only a 1-possession game. And then Russell wakes up and it's like, oh, this is a football game? Oh, yeah, let me just go ahead and do it. And then just like miraculous comebacks, miracle plays. Like, it's Tyler Lockett, how he makes this guy, like, some of the catches this guy makes, and the way he fits the ball into him. And like, listen, Tyler Lockett's doing a lot of that too, but like, Russ is finding, he's dropping it in the bucket, right? For lack of a better term.
Beautiful deep ball.
It's unbelievable, man.
But he holds on to the ball way too long. Everyone keeps on saying how bad the offensive line in Seattle is. He's a lot of the reasons for those sacks there.
100%, because he doesn't want to turn the ball over. Like, he protects the ball very, very well. He does not often make mistakes, right? He might not make the electric play. The game might be ugly, 6-3 going into the fourth quarter, and then they'll put up 21 points in the fourth quarter. Again, absolutely deserving of number 3 overall, but I totally agree with you. The worst, it feels like the worst number 3 rated quarterback.
The most overrated number 3 quarterback of all time, okay. Russell Wilson.
Speaking of overrated, I'm looking at the clock. We got 2 more in our top 10. Let's get to those people. Who do you got at number 2?
For number 2, I have Aaron Rodgers. For the fact that, we'll go through the stats: 9-time Pro Bowler, 3-time All-Pro, 1-time Super Bowl champ, 3-time MVP. Listen, he's Aaron Rodgers. He is phenomenal. He's never had the most elite talent around him. He's had good talent, and he's always made them better. Like before, what was Jordy Nelson before he went to, before he got drafted by Green Bay? So he's just amazing. He has 25 game-winning drives, 17 fourth-quarter comebacks. You look at his numbers; they're insane. Over 51,000 yards passing. His touchdown to interception ratio is insane. 412 touchdowns to is that
89.
89. That's 4 to 1. That's over 4 to 1.
It's ridiculous.
That's over 4 to 1. He's not only efficient, but he's explosive too. That is insane.
It's ridiculous. He's got a 126-63 record as a starting quarterback.
I'm more blown away by the touchdowns to interception ratio.
It's incredible.
I had to take a double take. I was like, is that only 89?
Lou, he's the only player in NFL history with 300+ touchdowns and under 100 interceptions. And he's under 100 interceptions with over 400 touchdown passes. So, like, that stat is just like, it's a really cool sounding stat, and then he just shits on it because he's like, I'm better than that, right? Yeah. Like, it's unbelievable. And it just seems like he only gets better when the chips are stacked against him. This is why, like I was saying, when everything that's going on in the offseason, he's going to go back to Green Bay. He's going to throw for 5,000 yards. He's going to win MVP. This is how he just like psychs himself up for the season nowadays.
Yeah.
My number 2 is Patrick Mahomes.
Wow.
Yeah. So listen, he is the sexiest player in the league right now. Totally get it. A short but very impressive body of work to this point in his career. Last year, 4,700 yards, 38 touchdowns, 6 picks, 66% completion percentage. He's not known as the runner, but it seems like those 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5s, when everything breaks down and Andy Reid's genius doesn't come to fruition, he figures out a way to scramble for that first down, and somehow people forget to tackle him on the sideline, and then he takes off for another 30 yards and scores a touchdown. 14-1 record as a starter. They sat him. This is splitting hairs to me, right? Like, But I go back to how I created my list, and if I was choosing who was going to be my starting quarterback right now for the season that I am going into, there were no rules around this that said for the next 10 years. We talked about right now, so I interpret that as the season going next to us. Patty Mahomes is my number 2.
All right.
So who's your number 1, Lou?
My number 1 would be Derek Carr. No,
Eyeliner wearing Derek Carr.
Patrick Mahomes is my number 1, obviously, and I have no stats on his name from the number 1 right here because I don't think I don't have to talk to you about stats. It's just watch him play. It looks so effortlessly the way he plays. Looks like he's just having fun, and then when things get serious, he's like, okay, I'll start trying now. His arm talent is insane.
Unbelievable.
His arm angles. He has the same amount of Super Bowls as your boy Aaron Rodgers, and he's just starting his career. It's just the eye test. Last year, he ranked second in passing yards for over 4,700 yards. I want to talk about efficiency: 38 passing touchdowns, 6 interceptions. That's an insane ratio as well. Yards per attempt, 8.1. I see so much Mahomes because he plays the team that I root for twice a year, and it's just there's no throw he cannot make, and he is young, and he's only going to get better.
Lou, do you think it's a fair, and I'll parlay this into my number 1 because it's obvious what we were just talking about, but do you think it's fair to almost say, like, there are elements of Patrick Mahomes' game that you're just kind of like, this is young Aaron Rodgers. Arm angles, launch points, confidence in the pocket, confidence in the huddle, just confidence in who he is as an individual, even though he's Kermit the Frog sounding. I mean, listen, I love everything about Patrick Mahomes. I still like this guy, even though his team beat my team in a Super Bowl and he waited till there was 6 minutes left in the game to remember how to play football like Russell Wilson does to us. So that's why I hate all of this. You're never going wrong with one of these two guys. My number 1's Aaron Rodgers. You just mentioned, hey, like the eye test for this year, like Aaron Rodgers, when you talk about ratio, touchdown to interception ratio, you said 38-6 for Mahomes. I'm going to say 48-5 for Rodgers, right? MVP of the league. Like, how do I not choose the MVP of the league at 37 years old going into the next season? And like like Tom Brady, who's probably his closest from a seniority standpoint, neither of these guys show any sign of slowing down. I think the one major difference for me why Aaron Rodgers is 1, and maybe it is just based off of experience in this league because they have similar individual accolades, is to me Aaron Rodgers just commands look, he's a smug son of a bitch. I don't like anything about him as a person. But this dude can play football, and he commands that huddle, and he commands everybody's respect around him. And I'm not saying Mahomes doesn't. I'm just saying Rodgers does it a little bit better with a little bit more credibility to it.
He has more tenure, so yeah.
Yep. All right. So you did underrated.
I did underrated and overrated.
Let's go. Since we both did overrated, let's go to overrated.
I'm going to shock people. Baker Mayfield. And let me tell you why. I'm not saying Baker is a bad quarterback. I think he's just efficient. What is he really good at? He has no awards to his name. He's the 3rd best quarterback from his draft. His completion percentage was 62.8%, ranking him 30th in the league last year. He ranked 18th in the league last year with 3,500 passing yards. He was tied for 12th in the league with 26 passing touchdowns, 15th in the league with a quarterback rating of 95.9, tied for 16th in the league with 7.3 yards per attempt. You see where he's consistently being ranked. He achieved all those numbers with the best offensive line perhaps in all of football and the best running back duo and really good offensive weapons around with Odell, Landry, Hooper, and Njoku. I'm not saying he's bad. I think he's efficient. But wouldn't you think you would have better success than what he's currently being ranked at right now?
You would think so. And I think there's still I'm still craving more from Baker, and I still think he has the right skill set.
I'm not saying he won't.
No,
so
exactly. I think we can hope for and expect more to come from him and continue to progress. Like last season, unquestionably, was his best season, right? Without even looking at the stats, like I know it has to be. I think we'll see more like that because they finally got that run game going around. They finally got a defense going around him, right? Where he could just breathe a little easier. He doesn't have to like what he did at Oklahoma, like be the be all end all for that team. Like he has the opportunity just to settle in, worry about his position, do it well. But I agree. I think every year everybody's like, Baker, and it's just not there.
Because his contract, he's up for a contract extension.
Because he's the number 1 pick overall. That's
he's going to get $165 million with those numbers.
Yeah, and he's going to because it's just the way it works.
I want to see more games like the one against the Ravens last year when there was a shootout and Baker was balling. I need to see more of those games before I'm giving him a $165 million contract.
So real quick, if you had to rank him, is he like in your top 15 though?
Probably he's probably the 15th,
Okay.
right in the middle of the pack.
Yep. But he's going to be paid like he's top 7. So my most overrated, and you won't agree with this, is Ryan Tannehill.
Of course. It's the name, man. I'm telling you, it's the name.
It's not the name. It's so the last 2 years, like on paper, like look at my record, right? Like what'd you say, 18-8 or something like that over the last 2 years.
He was good in playoffs too.
No winning season prior to that. I think he is tremendously benefited from a arguably top 3 run game in the league, arguably the top running back in the league that can wind down the fourth quarter, keep games close. Like if you look at Tannehill, it'll say he's got 22 comebacks, 22 game winning drives, but I don't think that's indicative of him, right? I think those games are close. Just move the chains a little bit. I don't see him making the big throw to completely flip the field and get into field goal range to win it, to do those things. And this is not an indictment on Ryan Tannehill. You called it out. Former collegiate wide receiver who came and was drafted in the NFL to play quarterback. Mm-hmm. Like that's weird. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like it to me, he's come a long way. He's getting progressively better. But I think I'll just use your list as an example, and is that to me not a top 10 guy. I talk to a lot of people that say he's a top 10 guy for them. I'm not putting him at 20, just like we talked about Baker. Like he's in my top 15. Like he's probably 13, 14, 15, somewhere in there. But I do think his name carries a little bit more weight than it probably should.
Just saying, you're knocking him for Derrick Henry. Peyton Manning had a bunch of players.
Sure did.
You know,
Sure did.
you need players around you to be successful.
Yep. Listen,
and you just heard it here first. Lou Guarini compared Ryan Tannehill twice to Peyton Manning
in the same show.
And I said,
Ming, cut the channel. Ming, cut it.
Ryan
cut his
Tannehill,
mic right now. Turn him off.
Ryan Tannehill is better than Peyton Manning. Bucket.
All right. Give me your underrated.
I'm going to say, believe it or not, Mr. Eyeliner wearing himself, Derek Carr. I hated Derek Carr, but when I was doing this exercise, I was trying to look at quarterbacks that were like in that mid-tier, and I always thought, just by watching him play, that he's a dink and dunker, and he's just efficient, and he has a losing record, so I get that. But those Raider teams were pretty damn bad, so you can't once again put all the losses on Derek Carr. But look at what he did last year. He was ranked 11th in the league in passing yards with 4,100 yards, 11th in touchdowns with 27, ranked 10th in quarterback ratings with 101.4, ranked 8th in the yards per attempt with 7.9. So he's not dinking and dunking, and he's putting up in the last over the last 3 seasons over 4,000 yards passing, and he's very efficient. He seldom gets more than 10 interceptions in a year. So not sure why he's being overlooked. I get it, because the franchise itself sucks, but he's a decent quarterback.
Derek Carr gets a bum rap, bro.
They're always looking to get rid of him, too.
It's just what it boils. And I respect what he said, that, like, if I'm not playing for the Raiders, I'm not playing. I don't actually believe that, but I think that's the type of guy he is. Mm-hmm. I think that's the type of player he is. Like, I've never not seen this guy give his all in games. And yeah, like, like any player, any quarterback, sometimes it's a questionable decision, but it's never with like malintentions or poor intentions. Like sometimes it's forcing the issue because he needs to do that for his team. He doesn't play on a team that carries winning records consistently, and he has to be the best player on his team. I would tell you this much. If Derek Carr was the quarterback of the 49ers or another deep roster.
What about like the Vikings or something?
Of the Vikings, for example, those teams are better than they are now because of that quarterback, right? And I have all the respect in the world for Derek Carr. I mean, with all this turmoil around Jimmy G and the 49ers and what was going on, if I woke up in the morning and Derek Carr was my starting quarterback, I would not be upset about that. I would say we probably are more competitive tomorrow than we were yesterday is the only way that I can look at it. I like Derek Carr. Unfortunately for him, he's just in a bum situation that's out of his control. So I'll wrap us up with a breakout player. I don't think this won't catch you by surprise. Maybe a little bit by surprise.
Is it Tua Tagovailoa?
Get the out of here, bro. Come on. You know better than that. Joe Burrow. Coming into his second year, I know he's coming off ACL injury. I understand that's going to be tough. But to me, he showed promise through 10 games last year. I'm guessing off the top of my head, but I'm assuming it was north of 2,500 yards in 10 games. Probably somewhere around 12 or 13 touchdowns, handful of interceptions, if you will. Shout out to Ming for bringing that up on the screen to make me look a little bit better than I really am. But I like the addition here with Jamar Chase. You got to think that Joe Mixon having, if possible, a healthy season takes a little bit of the pressure off. Another year in the league, I would not be surprised to see this guy go for north of 4,000 yards, 30-something touchdowns. Realistically, probably like 13, 14 picks, right? Because he's going to force the issue a little bit more, and he's still got to make some of those in-game mistakes to learn on. But I think the Bengals are going to be competitive, and I think he's going to have a better than expected sophomore season, especially coming off a pretty significant injury.
Yeah, I mean, he's Joe Burrow. He was great with LSU. He played real well last year, and if it wasn't for Justin Herbert, he would have been, up until he got hurt, he would have been the belle of the ball on the offensive side for the Offensive Rookie of the Year. I'm a big fan of Burrow, and they basically set up this offense just like they did years back with Carson Palmer and the two elite wide receivers on the outside. You got Higgins, you got Chase. They got Mixon. So he has a lot of people supporting him. Don't forget Tyler Boyd.
T. Higgins.
Yeah, Higgins on the outside.
Yep.
Yeah. If the offensive line can hold up, he's in a tough division, but I think he's going to give some teams some fits.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to watching him play. I think maybe that was more my reason, because I think of players that I'm like, who am I outside my own team? Like, do I really want to dial into, and who do I really want us to cover once we get to the season? And I just feel like he's just one of those guys. All right, Lou, that wraps us up for our first installment of Top 10, starting with the most prolific position in sports, the quarterbacks. We'll continue on the path with some sexy positions. I believe we have slotted for our next show will be Top 10 wide receivers.
Yes, the divas.
As we go through these positions, I'm looking more and more forward to this because I know we'll have discrepancies on our list. It's hard to have discrepancies around the quarterback, right? Like in any of these lists, when we get like 1 through 3, we're going to have all the same names, maybe just different order. But I think like 5 through 10 on these next positions, like I don't even know what you're going to come up with. I don't even know what I'm going to come up with.
Yeah, there's only 32 quarterbacks. How many receivers are out there?
Exactly. So you're listening to We're Talking Football podcast. Big shout out to Ming for having us back in a shared universe podcast studio. It's been long overdue. Lou, tell the people how to follow us in the social media world.
Follow us on Instagram and Twitter at WTF Pod NFL.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having us back, Ming. Lou, always a pleasure. Can't wait to wrap with you next time.
Awesome, bro.